This is Christina Shala, and welcome to another episode of Empowering the Educator. In today's episode, we are going to take a look at how a school can shift the mindset of its entire staff and students using a framework and planners. Although the framework and planners discussed in this video take a slightly different approach and look, I highly recommend that before watching this video, that if you haven't already done so, check out the following videos: educational frameworks and individualized planners. Frameworks that are designed for a shifting mindset are similar to educational frameworks that I've presented in prior videos, only the focus is on how to shift the mindset across an entire school, staff and students. So it could be that a school is interested in implementing a growth mindset, innovator's mindset, entrepreneurial mindset, etc. So it's less about the curriculum and more about mindset. With that said, there are a few differences. Whereas the other frameworks that I presented had to be designed first. You need to have the diagram done up first before doing the planners. In the case of frameworks for shifting mindset, you could design the framework before or after the planners. It's not going to make a difference. Also, the planners that are designed to support a framework for shifting mindset do not have to connect in the same way as when you're designing a framework, for example, like the transdisciplinary framework or something similar to that. Also, frameworks for shifting mindset illustrate the flow of problem solving. So how a whole school is going to maintain a consistent approach when solving problems and coming up with solutions and sharing. And then lastly, a framework for shifting mindset, it can stand on its own, or it can be placed alongside another educational framework that a school has done up. So, for example, if a school has something, in place similar to the transdisciplinary framework or the flipped classroom framework or language framework that I presented in prior videos, those can remain in place. And the framework for shifting mindset, if you can imagine, sort of runs alongside it. The two can coexist as one doesn't really affect the other. Let's say that a school's goal was to instill and foster an entrepreneurial mindset amongst its staff and students. How do you imagine it would go about doing so through the use of a framework and planners? As mentioned, when designing a framework for shifting mindset, it can be done before or after the planners are created. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to show you the framework that I've created first. And again, it's just a sample. It's not necessarily the only way that it could be done. But if a school was interested in shifting mindset in both staff and students across the board, this framework illustrates a way that this could be done. So you'll notice that in the center, it starts with the vision of the school, what they imagine the characteristics of entrepreneurial mindset might be, and sort of how they imagine the flow of problem solving that individual staff and teachers would take when solving problems. So that's in the center. And you'll also notice that administrators are included in this framework because they themselves can be part of the shift at the school towards an entrepreneurial mindset. And then you'll notice that the framework branches out into different subject areas. Again, this is pretty generalized. A school might want to add more, but you can see it's inclusive of support staff and specialist teachers and mainstream teachers, any single subject teachers a school might have. And from there, there's another outside layer for students because, again, they're also involved in this framework as it's an entire school shift. And if you can imagine, problem solving can start at any level. It can start with an administrator bringing up a problem, a staff member bringing up a problem, or students bringing up a problem. And the same thing for solutions that can come at any level. And so what this framework illustrates is how problems through each branch could be brought about and have solutions proposed. And it kind of goes in a cycle amongst all four. And then you'll notice that there's also lines that connect each of the subject areas and staff members, and also that connect all the students. And that represents collaboration, because it could be that a problem is presented that multiple teachers might want to come up with a solution for, or multiple classes of students might want to come up with a solution for. And so it kind of illustrates a whole school, process for instilling an entrepreneurial mindset. As you'll know from watching some of my prior videos, a framework cannot stand on its own. There needs to be the proper planning tools to support it in order for it to be implemented. Now, when designing planners for shifting mindset, there are two things that need to be taken into account. First of all, a school needs to know the characteristics that they're wishing to instill among staff and students. And the other thing to consider is the flow for problem solving. And this will become clearer as I show samples of planners that I've designed and the way that they're set up, because there's certain steps that teachers and students would need to take in order to solve problems that kind of incorporate the characteristics that would be chosen by a school. There are many different characteristics that a school could choose from if wanting to instill an entrepreneurial mindset at their school. For the sake of this video, let's say that a school chose the following 5: positivity, creativity, self-motivation, tenacity, and persuasiveness. With those chosen characteristics in mind, the next step is designing planners. Now, the samples that I'm going to show you in today's video come from my book, Empowering the Educator Within. And it's not all the planners that I included in my book. I just selected a certain few to give an idea of what they would look like. Now, as you take a look at this list, you'll notice that whereas in prior videos, the planners that I chose to share sort of applied to subject areas like mainstream teachers, language learning support, specialists. You'll note that this is different because you're trying to shift mindset across an entire school. It requires multiple sets of planners at different levels. And so you'll notice that there are 3 sets of planners that would need to be designed for individual teachers: self-reflection, goal setting, and implementing a shift in mindset. And then to match the framework and to support its objective, you'll note that there's also classroom planners that need to be designed, and those would be classroom reflection and classroom goal setting planners. And then lastly, because you're incorporating students within the framework, they also need sets of planners. And so you'll note that for students, planners would be created for self-reflection, goal setting, and implementing a shift in mindset. Let's take a look at a planner that's designed for individual staff members, whether they be administrator, coordinator, teacher, support staff. And this one here is for self-reflection. And because it came from my book, there are some shaded areas. Just ignore the shaded areas. If you read the book, you'll know why they're shaded. But if you take a look, you'll notice that the top row includes the characteristics that a school may have chosen. So, for example, it starts off asking teachers to reflect on if they're positive, if they're creative, if they're self-motivated, if they're tenacious, and if they're persuasive. The next row would be for providing prompts to sort of help the teachers understand what each of the characteristics mean, what the school is, how the school defines these characteristics. And then after that, it moves down to a checklist. And so a checklist could be made for each of these characteristics. And as a school, it could come from the administrator level or perhaps a school decision. What things would embody each of these characteristics? And then you can put sort of a checklist that teachers can go through and self-reflect on the qualities that they possess and ones that they don't possess. And this planner here would be used for teachers to note areas where they would like to improve and would sort of inform the direction that the goal setting planner that I'm going to show you next would, the direction that it would take. So as mentioned, this goal setting planner is a next step for teachers, administrators, coordinators, support staff. And so once they've noted areas of improvement in the self-reflection planner, they would move on to this planner, which again starts off with the characteristics, of positivity, creativity, self-motivation, tenaciousness, and persuasiveness. And for each one of these characteristics, they would need to set a goal or goals, indicate maybe some ways that they were going to go, some strategies they might use to, improve in those areas, when they would like to achieve these goals by, and then an area for them to note if they actually did meet their goals, and if not, maybe plan next steps. Or if they did, maybe they can choose different areas to focus on the next time they complete the goal setting plan. Whereas the planners that I shared for self-reflection and goal setting were focused on how teachers can improve individual traits or characteristics that a school has chosen within themselves, the planner for implementing a shift in mindset is actually the one that's going to dictate how across the board, whether administrator, teachers, support staff, how everyone is going to move through the problem-solving process. Now, this planner here, it's critical that you get the order of character traits correct, because it's going to dictate the thought process that all staff are going to move through as they're solving problems. Now, when designing a planner such as this, it could be designed by administrators alone, or it could be designed with staff input. And you'll notice that in each of the columns, as a staff member would move through from problem finder to persuasiveness, there are prompts and questions to help them along the way. So how it would work is a staff member would start with the first column, which is problem finder, which prompts them to identify a problem they wish to solve, and also ask them if they would like to do it on their own or if they would be collaborating with anyone else. It then moves to prompting teachers to answer questions on how they can put sort of a positive spin on the problem and maintain a positive attitude kind of throughout the process as they move along. Then it moves to creativity. So teachers would be required to come up with creative solutions to the problem that they've identified. Then it goes to self-motivation. How are they going to stay motivated throughout the process? Then tenacity. What's going to happen when they run into adversity? What's going to be the solutions to overcoming them? And then lastly, persuasiveness. How are they going to persuade others at the school that their solution is the correct one? And now, as you can see, by incorporating the traits that the school has chosen, as staff members continuously use this planner over and over again to problem solve, eventually they're going to be shifting their mindset towards an entrepreneurial mindset. One thing to note about these planners before moving on to the classroom sets is that I just showed a generalized version for each one. When you've got different staff members at the school, some wording changes might need to happen in order to accommodate an administrator or a teacher. So it may be that in one set of planners you're referring to classroom, but for an administrator you would use the word school. For more examples on how planners could be individualized based on a staff member's role, you can check out Empowering the Educator Within. In the book, I've included various samples and ways that this could be done. In order to be in line with the entrepreneurial mindset framework and the goal of the whole school shifting mindset, inclusive of students, classroom planners are required to ensure that teachers, as they are planning, are creating opportunities for students to incorporate and demonstrate the different characteristics that the school would like to instill. And so the first planner that would be designed is a classroom reflection planner. And so as you'll note, the top row again starts off by indicating the 5 characteristics that the school has chosen: positivity, creativity, self-motivation, tenacity, and persuasiveness. And then as the teacher moves down, there's the checklist. But whereas the individual self-reflection planner had a checklist where teachers were, evaluating themselves, this one asks the teacher to think about if they're encouraging students to exhibit these traits, if they're providing opportunities for students to be persuasive or tenacious or positive. And they would go through the checklists, note which ones they felt they were doing well in, and then similar to the self-reflection planner, note areas for improvement. How could they, which areas do they think that they could maybe provide more opportunities for students to learn and demonstrate these characteristics? And again, this bottom row would determine what information goes into the classroom goal setting planner. Moving on now to the classroom goal setting planner. You'll note that it's very similar to the goal setting planner for individuals, only now it's taking a classroom focus. Instead of individual goals, it's goals for each of the characteristics and how you are going to provide opportunities for students to learn about and demonstrate these characteristics. And so for each of the traits, a teacher would note goals for themselves and how they could help students in the classroom move towards this direction. And then again, they would need to, put a date by when they would like to meet their goals, note if they met their goals, and lastly, areas that, maybe they need next steps. So if they didn't meet their goals for the classroom, what could they change so that they do? Or if they did meet the goals that they set for themselves, they could choose other ones based on the classroom reflection planner. Now again, similar to the individual planners that I shared in the last section, these planners can be individualized based on staff member, whether they're a specialist, learning support, based on their needs. So some wording changes can be made if needed. Finally, because the entrepreneurial mindset framework is inclusive of students, they are also going to need a set of planners or planning tools that they can follow and use so that they can also shift their mindset towards an entrepreneurial mindset. And when designing student planners, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You've already created ones for staff on an individual level. All that's really required to do is to make wording changes so that they're student friendly. And so you would go through and just where you've got, your checklists and prompts, you would take a look at the wording that you used for staff and think about how to change them for students. So in this self-reflection planner for students, not very many changes were made. The ones that were done are highlighted in gray there. And in keeping in line with the 5 characteristics, the top starts with positivity, creativity, self-motivation, tenacity, and persuasiveness. And by providing the students this very similar looking self-reflection planner, they can be going through the same process as the staff members themselves, thereby creating sort of a whole school approach to self-reflection and, taking a look at what character traits you possess and using the self-reflection planner to inform your goals. As mentioned, there's no need to reinvent the wheel when designing planners for students, and depending on the grade level, you may find that the ones that were created for staff also work for students. So in this case, the goal setting planner here was kept the same. The students would go through the exact same process and see the exact same wording as staff members would. And the last planner for students is the one for implementing a shift in mindset. And this is one where you may wish to alter it quite a bit, depending on the grade level of students that you're going to give these planners to. As you can see here, there were many wording changes made in comparison to the one that was designed for staff members, just so that it's easier for students to understand. And then also too, this planner has been condensed. You may not wish to require the students to have to go through such a lengthy process and answer so many questions as they're moving through the problem-solving process. So this shows one way of how a planner could be condensed and reworded so that it is student-friendly, and that so they are still in line with how staff are solving problems. And again, by providing these planners to students, it ensures that they are going through the same steps as the teachers, and as a whole school, how everyone can move towards shifting towards an entrepreneurial mindset across the board. What are some of the benefits of creating a framework for shifting mindset and planners to a company? First off, shifting mindset across an entire school is not an easy thing to do. But by providing the tools and guidelines as to how a whole staff is going to go about doing this, you end up with a united staff moving in the same direction, where everyone is working towards shifting their mindset without any gaps. The second thing you're going to end up with are empowered staff, because there's no guesswork in how to go about doing so. And the third benefit is that you're going to end up with empowered students. It's one thing to talk to students about characteristic traits that you would like to see, and quite another to provide them with the tools to actually do so. And also for the students, not only are they self-reflecting and goal setting on ways that they can improve, but they're also part of the problem solving and solution finding strategies that the entire school is using. They have the power to suggest problems they would like to solve. And they also have the power to come up with solutions to problems, whether they're ones that they came up with themselves, or whether they're ones that an administrator came up with, or that staff members came up with. The purpose of this video was just to share one way that a framework for shifting mindset could be designed, and how the planners could look to support it. By no means is it the only way. Also too, as mentioned, this video didn't include all the planners that I showed in my book, Empowering the Educator Within. It also didn't touch on some of the different frameworks that I've designed on the education blog that were for the purpose of shifting mindset as well. So if you're interested in learning more about planners and frameworks for shifting mindset, you can visit www.shalbooks.com, check out the education blog. You can also purchase my book via the website. And if you feel like you might need some more support in designing tools for your school, you can feel free to contact me via the website. I'm always happy to help. Thanks for tuning in today. Join us next time for another episode of Empowering the Educator Within.